shiver down my spine, and I had a hip surgery through front of my neck here. And I just said to my wife when I got off the field, I said, I think that's it, I think I've got enough, I don't want to do this anymore. And I still had about sort of 2 years to run my contract. I just signed a 2-year extension of contract. And I was in a bit of pain, and then my wife said, and none of the people that were doctors there, the team I was with, wanted me to go and, they had no answers for what I was getting my pain on. And my wife said to me, she said, why don't you go to a chiropractor? And I said, I dare tell you the surgeons. Anyway, I went to a chiropractor there in the North of Ireland in Belfast for a little bit of time, and I couldn't believe the results. I was pain free, and momentarily. And the coach at the time was ex-Springbok, back up to Neil Mallett in the late 90s, Storms coach Alan Solomons. I sat with Solly and I said, mate, I've had enough. And he said, just give us until the European Cup finished, which was 6 months later. Anyway, I stayed for 6 months. I went to the States and I stayed at a chiropractor. And I ran the director of rugby there at a university, which is the best university in the United States, University. Since then, I've been back to Australia for almost a decade. I've had very little to do with rugby until last year when Garrick had been pressing me for a number of years when he was the coach of the Gold Coast team here to come and help him, but I was very busy with other things. And Murray took me along last year. And we come down and help all the lads, and from about under 12, and I'm currently doing the guys at Bond, which is the first of the top teams at Bond, and I spent some time with some other administrative guys in Brisbane and helping them out just doing one-on-one sessions. But I guess enough about that sort of background. I guess what I would actually consider myself more of an expertise now, an expert in structural biomechanics, injury prevention, and rehabilitation, which probably given me a great opportunity to play and put those glasses on, mixed with my old playing glasses, and sort of marry the two views and develop strategies to improve the number 9s, and strategies to improve not only their game awareness but also their physical structures and things like that. And I'll speak very clearly. Now, I have no ambition to be a coach. I envy you guys for being head coaches and full-on coaches. I really have no desire to be a full-on coach. But I do know a lot about the number 9 play, and pretty much that's all I really know. I don't know much else about running a team, and I don't really want to. But I understand it's a challenging job, and it comes with a whole range of things. You just have to look at TV these days and realise the sort of stuff that goes on with the players to understand how challenging that is. And particularly with young kids, you're going to have younger kids in your groups that are extremely talented. There's some that are a bit lower. And I guess for you, if I can help you impart some stuff, then you can just maybe develop that person just a little bit further before he gets to a representative team, or even she, the coaching women for that matter, gets to a representative team before they're exposed to someone who's more specific. In saying that, when I went through, you kind of learned yourself, much like you guys. I understand you guys probably all have played junior rugby, and you probably would have had that same experience. There's not too many specific, positional coaches in junior rugby. You don't really get up until you're about 5 years old. In 19, my first one was, besides watching my peers, which I watched all the things in those my formative years, and my first real coach, that really sort of had a look at this guy called John Whitmore, who has since passed away. He was a Lawley halfback. I don't really know when. Has anyone heard his name? Sometime in about late 70s, sometime mid 70s, after catch pole. Sometime after catch pole. I think, is that right?
Yeah, I think Barry's
yeah.
About 70.
Yeah, probably. He just asked recently. And he took me through some technical stuff. Anyway, it's always a challenge when you get somebody to try and teach you something that you've already sort of worked out how to do. change like a golf swing or something. If you've been playing golf for 20 years and somebody comes up and says, well, why don't you do it this way? I guess it would probably be hard to change that. But that's what John managed for me to do, and managed to do to me and to change my way of passing. And then I had to go to England and learn a whole different way of passing, which those young kids, how they pass the rugby ball is phenomenal. And then learn all their kicking, because I never learned how to kick. And then I used to sit there and watch Kieran Brake and them guys after training and doing extras for 50 minutes to an hour and a half and doing box kicks that land in squares, in metre squared squares or 2 metre squared squares, and they'd just be pumping these out. And there was a process to it, and I never understood this because as soon as training finished, I used to be a smoker back in those days as well. I haven't smoked for 20 years almost, but first all I do is get a ciggy in my mouth after training and get out of the joint. The precision and all that stuff, and as you can see, all the guys are developing these days, they require that input, and they need somebody to give them the foundation to work. So I guess that moving on just a little bit with my philosophy on rugby, it's nothing spectacular really. It's just a huge skills base, and probably you guys, if you're all Australian and educated in rugby, you're all around. I'm 43, so probably all around my age. We all probably grew up with the John O'Shea, David Clark. Forget the first name. Dick Marks, Alec Evans, Boxy O'Shea. They got together that national coaching system, and then it was furthered by guys like Jeff Shaw, Matt Williams, Terry Burkett, Anthony Herbert even did it for a while as well. And that was a system that was devised in 1970. Well, they got together after 1973, after Australia got beaten by Tonga. Australia beaten by Tonga in 73. So these guys got together and they developed this national coaching plan. And so that was a very, very non-strength drill type stuff and skill oriented. So that's what I was brought into. And it's ironic that was stopped in 1996. When John O'Neill, was it John O'Neill? Yeah, that was one of the first things he got rid of when he first became the Australian Rugby Union head. He got rid of Dick Marks and all those guys' plans that have been processed since about 78. And if you look at the kids, anyone that followed rugby or practiced rugby between 78 and 96, it's probably the golden era of Australian rugby. And to correlate things to that level, there was a couple of World Cups and stuff involved in that. Anyway, so it's a very skills-based philosophy, and just very simple. That's what we were brought up on. And I guess as far as the halfback goes, there's 4 factors that I want to talk about tonight with the halfback. And the first one's, and if you want to write this down, I can give you a chance to write it down, is general game skills. The second one is general athletic skills or qualities. The third one is mental attributes. And the fourth one is position-specific skills, which probably is obviously the most, but those other 3 have some factors as well. And I guess just with the, we'll mention the first 3 very quickly and just go over those 3 because it will demonstrate some things later on. But in terms of the first one with general game skills, just as when you're coaching, when we're coaching kids and stuff, we all have to have the general skills: tackling, running, passing, rucking, mauling, what was the other one? Kicking. All those general skills are required. So there still has to be the emphasis on that halfback to do all those things. You look at today's one halfback, and oftentimes you find if you watch the Super Rugby or I've had the whole weekend, this past weekend, watching Six Nations Rugby, the weekend before, and quite often the number 9 is the bridge going over because the phases are going that quickly. That 9 will become the bridge. He'll be your, I think the terminology that you use today is 2+1. He's the +1, and he'll be that bridge going over the top. Cleaning out or protecting, whatever you want to call it. So he has to know all these skills and have all these basic skills. The second one is the next 2 are probably getting more into where my main area of concern is at the present time, with my work and stuff like that, is the general athletic skills. Probably the prime factor with the number 9s is speed. I would say speed and agility. So if you're right there, I don't know what level we're talking to, but if you're identifying a guy, identifying a number 9, he's going to be quicker, probably the second quickest or the second or third quickest in the team. Probably in addition to that, as far as speed goes, there's also an endurance component, and he's probably got to be as fit as or just behind your number 7. So your number 7, I may be thinking about 10 or 15 years ago, so feel free to correct me in your own minds if I'm wrong. But the number 7 was always the first person to the breakdown, or close enough to it. These days, it's probably, the higher we go, it's pretty much pre-ordered or pre-structured as to who's hitting what rucks, etc., etc. But generally, as fit as the number 7, or close to. So the endurance factors required as well as the speed and agility. And if you have a look at the best number 9s presently on the television, I don't know what's happened to Will Genia with his speed, but he's got it. I think he just hasn't had an opportunity to use it. But the fellow from New South Wales, Phipps, is he's very quick. But probably quicker are the two guys from New Zealand, Perenara and Smith. They're pretty lightly. And then the guy from South Africa that's very quick, or he was quick maybe before he had his knee issues, was Pereira. He's a very quick guy. In the UK, they're not quick at all. there's not many quick ones there. Although Conor Murray is a very good player. I watched him play recently. I don't know if you're familiar with that. He's getting up there. He's pretty good. Conor Murray. So if you're looking, he'd be, actually I tell the young guys, for general all-round skill, for 8 out of 10 across the board, I think Conor Murray's up there, whereas Aaron Smith is 9 and 10 in some areas, but in terms of his kicking is not as good as Conor Murray. Conor Murray's just a very 8 out of 10 for everything. And his kicking's pretty precise. So we'll get onto that in a second, the kicking. And the agility, and it's something that we've spoken about, Heath and myself and Murray, is there's a guy also that we know that does the beach sprints, and we want to get the number 9s involved in the beach sprints and get them involved in agility work, and that's probably, if any of you guys, a few guys here have seen my sessions that I do with the kids, even with the adults at Bond University, about a third of the session is agility. And we're looking at doing something with buying sleds and things like that, and to increase or improve the number 9's agility levels and their speed. These factors are very important. I think that once somebody has these, if you're in under 10s, or obviously in under 10s, if you've got an athlete, he's going to carve up in under 10s. Those in the tough areas for the halfback, and I've spoken to Michael about this, I think, about his youngster, is that, I spoke to Murray about Sam. The toughest thing for me, being a halfback from when I was 7 to when I finished professional 31, was under 14 to under 16, because I didn't grow. And I was, and particularly today also, we didn't have the lads from Polynesian lads that are playing today. We didn't have them playing. Otherwise, we could have got belted out of the game because they're all big boys.
You still have the big boys from Downlands, though, didn't you?
We did have the big boys from Downlands, and Downlands were when I was playing. I mean, there are probably 5 household names come from that first team: Limebourne and more, and the Bronco guy, Peter Ryan, played for the Broncos in Queensland State of Origin. But they're all big boys. So I guess what I'm getting at is that between the age group of 14 to 16, so I think you guys have got number 9s between the age of 14 and 16 is very tough, because quite often or not, they're tiny, they're the last to grow, and I think I suffered about 5 concussions all the time I played, but I think I suffered about 3 or 4 of them between those age groups. And I just got belted by kids because I was too light playing. But somehow I managed to get through those years, and you tend to grow. But I think that for the kids that are there, I know Colin and Oscar's, he's on the shorter side as well, isn't he? I think if the kids can develop speed and agility, they can avoid most of that rubbish that goes on. So if you've got your number 9, I think he needs to be smart on his feet, and he can avoid all that traffic, and he can avoid one-on-one, the one-on-one collisions that occur these days also. Probably at a junior level, I could be wrong, but they seem to be wrong. I cringe sometimes at the junior level when I see it, let alone at the senior level. So, some of these, the hits these boys are putting on, they knock people in the next week. So if you've got a youngster who's only 40 or 50 kilograms, he's 14 or 16, I think that the key would be the other part that we're going to develop with the lads, as well as not pumping into gym or getting massively huge, because we have to grow from maybe the inherent speed factors and agility factors that they have, but develop those, but just develop some body weight strength as well. So that's another part of the program that I'm looking at, and hopefully we may get a chance to implement that for some select guys, maybe in the under 15s or something. But I think that's a big component for the kids. There might even be the number 10s may fall into that category as well, where they might just get belted out of the game too soon, and mum sees them have a concussion, when we were younger, all of us when we were a bit younger, if you had a concussion, it was like, get up your sock, get up and keep playing. But I think nowadays it's a bit more serious than that, and there's obviously repercussions for the health down the track for the kids. So I think that if we can focus on developing the speed and the agility of these guys, and it'll probably provide them with a bit more impetus, and probably develop their smart-ass type attitude as well, because I think that's another attribute for the number 9s as well. They've got to be a bit cheeky as well to survive. And so that, when you have speed like that, and speed's probably, I would say, is the biggest factor. The other one's the agility and stepping, and that's a part of the stuff that we do as well, is the stepping. And that's a huge thing, because there's a lot of traffic around there. There's a lot of avoiding that. I don't know what, everyone has a different name for it, defender A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3, or whatever. We need to clear that area very quickly. So, agility is required to get in and out of trouble in and around the ruck. And I guess also another thing that another thing that I think that's quite appropriate, that I really stress upon. I actually will talk about this on the running part. I'll get back to that. And then thirdly is the mental attributes. And I said the cheekiness and that smart alecky attitude. I think that's required, and that comes with a bit of confidence. It doesn't come with somebody that can't back it up with their mouth, so to speak. So I think that if you've got the speed, and you've got that agility, and you can do that, you can get a bit of cheekiness into the player, and and that would be an advantage as well. We've all seen those cheeky people, those ones, and we all know, probably played against some of them, but that comes and goes with the territory of playing halfback, I think. I played against one guy years ago who was the worst I've ever seen. Was a guy called Kevin Putt, who played for Natal, and he played for, I played against him against Natal as well, but also at London Irish, and he played at London Irish, and he gave me a headache after the game, because he was just constantly just cheeky, kick the ball out of your hand, step on your toe, elbow you in the jaw like this accidentally, anything just to get an advantage. But it worked, because it put me off my game as well, a bit as well. So he's just like a moron for most of the time, but it annoys you, Anyway, so that's probably another factor. Also tough. I'll tell you something here as well about tough as well. I think that I've mentioned before about getting knocked down and getting back up. I think that's probably an attribute of any player. It's a general skill to be able to get through it, because it's a tough game. I don't know. I think the more I've stepped out of the game now, and the more I go and watch it, it's a bloody tough game. I don't, for the kids getting belted all the time, or senior guys, if you're coaching senior guys, it's hard on them, and they're getting hit quite a lot. My cousin is Neil Henry's the Titans. Neil Henry's right-hand man is my cousin, Jamie Matthew, and Jamie the head of all recruitment at the Titans and salary cap, etc. And Jamie played in NRL. And I was talking to Jamie. He worked with Artie Beats and the Roosters for 7 years, and Peter Sullivan. I think I've told you this, Murray. I said to him, Jamie often asked me about rugby union players who could perhaps convert to rugby league, and because they're always on the lookout for players, and he's at the Roosters. And he said, and I said to him, what are you looking for? Some good players, got fast, got good steps and everything. And he says, mate, I couldn't give a shit about the steps. I couldn't give a shit about this. Artie told us what Artie Beatson told me. And Peter O'Sullivan, who was head of the Roosters now, came from Melbourne and recruited Slater and Inglis and all those guys. And he said to them, he said, there's 2 attributes. And he said, what do you reckon they are? And I didn't know. Step, pass, speed, kicking. He says, no, he says, the first attribute that they look at with the NRL, because it's such a hard game, he says, toughness. He says you've got to be able to get up, get smashed, get up, get smashed, get up, get the shit kicked out of you, and get back up and do it again next week. And get back up and do it again next week. And the week after, 25 weeks of the year, or 26 weeks of the year. And he said the second attribute is we look at their parents and their potential size. And when he said that, I was shocked and overwhelmed. But now the more I think about it, and I said, what about running? He goes, he was referring to Trent Robinson. I said, we'll just get Robbo to teach him all that crap. This is what they're after. He was referring to the Roosters coach because he was still at the Roosters when he told me this. Anyway, so I think that the toughness is huge because it is a tough game that we play. So you can't, if you're looking at number 9, that's a key factor as well for the toughness. And we've probably all seen some tough number 9s over the years. Smart and intelligent, and I've said this to Murray again, I think that perhaps it suffers from a lot of the coaches today. Maybe there's a lot of structure in the game, so it takes away the innovation and the intelligence of a guy playing the position. And I kind of cringe a little bit. I know you're all coaches, but I'm not really having a go at you, but I cringe a little bit when they say, the coach is giving instructions from the sideline, etc. When you're playing, if you can't see and read what's in front of you, you don't need a bloody coach to tell you what to do. I don't know, maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I was fortunate enough to play with some really intelligent guys. In fact, when I played Mr. Sai, I think when I played with Peter or somebody recently, when I went on the first Queensland tour in 1990, our captain was adopted, Bill Campbell. We had about 2 or 3 dentists in the team. I'm not saying that you have to be that to be intelligent, but I'm just saying a lot of intelligent guys, and playing with a guy like Michael Liner or all those guys that were just, but it didn't have to be Michael Liner, even at the club, playing at the club level, playing secondary at club level. You'd be the guy that was probably slightly overweight, or you just didn't have the athletic capacity, but you could read a game. We've all seen those guys in the clubs who didn't have physical prowess, but have great skills, and they can read games. So I think that the onus, perhaps from a coaching point of view, is to put it back on the player to read what's in front of them. And to play what's in front of them. So the guy has to be kind of smart, thinking on his feet. Get out of trouble here, dance around, or, this is the pattern of play. I always tell the young lads that we're saying when we're running from phase to phase, because we're doing 80 to 100 phases at half at the highest level. So when I'm talking to those guys, keep taking pictures in your mind as what it looks like when you're running across the field. Look and snap and take that picture and store it. Look and snap, and then all of a sudden, when you're throughout the game, you've got 50 to 100 different pictures of what the defensive patterns look like, what they were doing, come back and stand when you're standing in defence, when they're going through the phases, and take pictures and look and see where they're going. And then I'm getting into the last section here, but from an attacking point of view also, put yourself on the other foot and start just early in the game, you have to teach them to probe the zone. So either side of the ruck was to be zone 1, zone 2. And that's not with them running, but that's with directing the play, because the number 9 gets his hand on the ball. If he decides to do it, these guys aren't getting it. So he passes it to the 10. But if your 9s and 10s work on probing zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, all the way out, there's a weakness somewhere along that line. And also, here's another point, another gem of a thing that you might want to take with you, is that when you play the phase ball, and I don't know, I'm not too familiar with like when phase play when junior rugby becomes like sort of senior rugby in terms of that clean ball coming out and speed. I don't, maybe is it 13? Do you know, Murray? Is it 15s? When there's a lot of ball getting turned over and recycled. When you're having 5 to 10 phases, does that occur at a 12-year-old level, or 14-year-old level, or 16-year-old level?
It doesn't.
The 15 ETS squad played a very quick game on Saturday night that had an incredible amount of quick turnover.
What I say to the guys, and this is what I've worked out on my own head, is when you come to a ball that's been a ruck, basically the probing area goes from the moment that ball gets presented to the number 9 out of the guy gets tackled, he places. From the moment that ball hits the deck, let's say we're running this way, from the moment that ball hits the deck, and that's the ball there, immediately this zone is the immediate split seconds. This zone is the zone to penetrate. Then it goes this zone, and then it moves the way out very quickly out onto the wing. So it goes out like that, like a wave, and will come back. So if it goes out, let's say if we counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds, it comes the wave comes back. 8 seconds, the defence is restructured. So then, again, the probing area really just becomes here again. Are we following me? To a degree? Let me just go over that again. So the ball gets presented by the tackler, the number 9 gets it. As soon as that guy's landed and placed that ball like that, the immediate opening for penetration is actually straight here, because their pillar or their post, whatever you want to call it, hasn't had enough time. So that's why you'll see a quick place and a pick and go straight away is on straight away. These are all just generalisations. But as it gets slowly presented, their pillar will fill in there, so that closes that. So split second after that, there's the gap with their their A fills in, their B isn't filled in. As soon as B fills in, this is all split second. Then it goes out to the wing, and then it comes back. If you see with Bill Genia, the ball's in there for 5 seconds, he's just standing there like this now, he's sort of saying like this, because the only area to penetrate is essentially just here, really. And that's why they do those pick-up things that drive you insane when they're trying to close out a game. And they have those close-in little things, whatever you want to call them, like that, rucks. But Australia do it, they tend to get penalised or they turn over the ball when they're trying to close out a game. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's get on to us. Let's get on to specific skills. With the part, we don't have a ball here, Mario, do we? I think a ball's in. That's all right. The passing drills, I think that what we take with the youngsters is we just, I might just use, I might just use that. Basically, just allow the boys I just allow them just to get the ball in a cradle like that and let it sit there in a cradle wherever they like to have it sit, wherever they feel comfortable with it. And then we basically get them to just start like 10-pin buckling like this. And I get them to use that left foot and to aim right at the belly button of the person. And actually try to get them to encourage them to not only use both sides, but actually to try and imagine them putting the ball through the belly and out the other side. So it's actually like that, and start getting used to generating the power from the hip. That's essentially with the grip, because it is really a flick of the wrist. We've picked up a few drills recently where if you really want to get your number 9s using their wrists, it's in the junior rugby. I think that it's harder for them to do with the wrist but if they don't do it, it's detrimental to them down the track. So it's easy to do it with their shoulders and passing like that with their shoulders. It's the easy option because that's how they develop a lot of their strength. But I think it's detrimental to the development of a player, and I think it's actually detrimental to your team if they're doing that. The reason I say that now is because and talking with those guys at Bond, the senior guys at Bond recently, it was very difficult for me to come into the senior guys at Bond, although there's a couple of youngsters there as well. But one of the things that I wanted to try not to do was I tried not to really mess around with their stuff because they got everything sorted. I'm more interested in the senior level is the exit to the pass, because the importance is on the exit, because you're doing 100 passes a game, and I was always thought with me, if you can get 90 to 95 out of 100, you do spot on, you're doing pretty good. It's because it's a tough job. But the importance, I think, is the exit of the pass. And when I say exit, I mean getting down, out, and actually getting out of the pass. So not actually the execution of the pass itself, but actually getting out, because there's a demand of you and a requirement of you to get to the next ruck. So say a guy like Nick Phipps, we've all watched Nick Phipps play. He's improved over the last year. He must be as fit as anything that play. But he's improved over the last year because 3 or 4 years ago he was missing a lot of rucks. And you would notice, particularly at the top level, you'd notice the balls are seen at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the opposition would be able to come over and grab it. But because he's changed his pass a little bit, and whoever's worked with him, I don't know who's worked with him, but he would used to pass around his shoulders like that. Now imagine if I'm passing to Heath, he's my number 10, and I'm passing this ball here. This is how they pass with the shoulders. This foot is actually pointing that way, and you're picking up and you're winding back up and you're trying to pass around the knee and you're trying to hit a target. It's akin to at the Ecken or the show, or Royal Easter Show, whatever show, the carnival affair, those clowns with their mouths get the ping pong ball. And it's got the arm that goes like this. And I think it's got number 10s in the centre or something, and you've got to try and get in the centre to get the big prize. Well, passing like that is akin to putting that ball in that clown's mouth at the exact precise time to get it to go to where you want. So I've got to pick this up and then let go of that at the exact precise time to hit Heath. Otherwise, if I let go too late, it's going behind Heath. You don't want that. And it's going too far in front of Heath. The other thing with that as well is the speed of the pass is not controllable. Because it's not a delicate, it's either 0% or 100%. It's just, you just flogged it, you're just giving it heaps of revs. So when it's on its trajectory and on its target, if it misses, it's going a million miles behind, at a million miles an hour or a million miles an hour in front. What happens though is also as that is when they pass like that, is basically, if we know a little bit about physics, force is mass times acceleration. And acceleration is, and so your force, so you've got one force going that way, and this force is anchored back here. So then this guy's stuck in concrete, and quite as often or not, like that, he's on one leg, out of balance. That guy's got to get to the next ruck, because there's another 50 rucks for him to get to, in that, maybe 5 or 8 or 10 in that next phase. So that's probably the biggest key is that we teach is, and also he's got to pass around that leg. And goodness, God help him if he hits the leg and it clips the leg, because it could go anywhere as well. So the key that we teach is to get into the pass first. There's five steps. This is for the youngsters. Balls there. One is just the foot placement right up beside the ball. The second one is the second foot placement, which goes out to here. Which goes out towards Heath. So it's up, number 1 is the foot placement, number 2 is there, and we show the number 10 is eventually going to see your heart or the center of your chest. So that's where the swivel is. So that's number 1, number 2, and then it's down to the ball. And these are all exercises and drills that we are encouraging the youngsters to do, and the other guys to develop. If you notice, all the halfbacks, all the good ones, have really strong looking thighs. The ones playing those, because they're continually doing these squats and going down doing these squats. So they're down, and then this here is just the range. And I say to guide that, your number 10 is standing here, just behind or on his right hip. He's standing to a seat like that. Just on the side of his right hip is where that goes. So the key for the number 9 is to get down and then pick up the ball and pass. And I always say to the guys, it doesn't have to be a perfect spiral pass. Because you've got your power coming off that stand up of that right hip, and this is going along the line, you're never going to be off target. It doesn't matter if it's perfectly spiral, it doesn't matter if it's got 80% of the power in all pass, it's going to hit the target, and you're going to be back in the game, and you're going to be on its nose, not on the ball. So these are sort of like this, and you're following the ball. So they're probably the key components of the pass, and both sides of that. So what I get the guys doing is to do drills and flexibility. First of all, you've got to be flexible to do that, because you can't just go down there, you end up tearing the groin or something like that. So you've got to be flexible enough to get down there, and you've got to be able to hold it down there, and then you've also got to be able to push off with that back right leg, so a bit of power in your backside as well. So they're the biomechanics of the passing, and it's very injury-free there. You're in and out of the pass quickly, and then we work on just different fast approaches down and up. That's the passing component. Quickly now, I think we've got a few minutes, Murray? Yeah. The kicking component, the running component, quickly just the running component. I said I should bring this up. The running component is when you're working inside the rucks, with the rucks, if you just remember, well, this is how I teach the boys as well. Run with your eyes, with the ball, your eyes, and your feet. That's what we run with. Benji Marshall eyes sort of thing. Ball in 2 hands and quick feet. If we run with those and we display that to the opposition, when they see you running at them, that's going to have the opposition in a bit of quandary a little bit. And I always say to them, if you want to, it's either you're going to get smashed or you're going to go through the hole. Because particularly when you're working in close to the ruck, you get smashed, you go through the hole. You decide you either run at the space first and then draw 2 and draw 2 in, or you run at the face and then you put footwork on them to create a gap and run around them. So if you want to go through the space yourself, run at the face first, because you've got to size them up and in the way, or put footwork on them. You've got to have that defender like that. And again, from a defensive point of view, obviously you want the defender in feet in concrete. But from a defensive point of view, and this comes from rugby league as well, is all the defenders attacking looking at the hips. So if you're teaching your guys for defence, teach them to look at your hips. But we want the opposition to look at the ball in 2 hands, we want them to look at the eyes, and we want them to look at the feet, because they'll be confused. So it's a flip side there. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying 2 different things there. I'm saying from a defensive point of view, from your team defending, you want to get your team avoiding the eyes, avoiding the hands, and avoiding the feet, just looking at the hips. But from an attacking point of view, you want to get their defensive guys to look at the eyes. We run it, looking at that way as if you're going there and then footwork there. You want to get them to look at the eyes and the feet and the ball. Okay. And just the kicking, I only teach the guys 2 or 3 kicks. And the higher we go, first of all, that's the rugby field. And you can see the halfway is the crease. We're running that way. Essentially, about 90% of all kicks from the halfback. We want to get them, that's the 15-yard line down there, that's the 15-yard line. Okay. There's the 22, there's the 22, there's the 15-yard line, there's the halfback. Okay. This is what I teach the senior guys at the bottom of the moment. This is the areas where you want all your kicks to land. There's the 15-yard line, there's the 22. So I just say to them, you've got to have 3 or 4 different kicks in your artillery. And this happens at the senior level. I don't know how, again, what level you guys are at, but I teach the youngsters this anyway. how to kick. So I just say to them in training, we're going to go to various areas here, and just you've got to get the ball to land there. So if you are way back here, you've got to do a long kick to get it to land there. If you're outside your 22, we want it to land ideally just outside the 22. Obviously, if we're way back here, we want it to land on the halfway. Any exit strategy of any senior team is we want to get to that halfway, okay, with a kick at the second or third phase after kick-off or some sort of restart. So what they might kick off to this side, they'll do one guy hit up, and then their number 10 will be aiming to get over to here, or to get the kick into this position. But basically box kicks, and again, with the box kicks, this is just, I'll just finish up here. With the box kicks, I had to put this in for the kids, how to put it together. A lot of that stuff was for the kids. But for the box kicks, I used to watch those guys and play against those guys in England, box kicking, and they were phenomenal. All the guys were brilliant at box kicking, and I didn't even have a clue how to box kick. But they taught me how to do it, and basically I get them to hold the ball for right footers, and I just say 8 and 2. So that's 2 o'clock, and that's 8 o'clock. So I just say 8 and 2, and then I just say head down, kick through. And I said, the only kick where you actually bring the foot to the ball, every other kick is you drop the ball to the foot. It's the only kick actually where you bring the foot to the ball. So the other thing is wherever your chest is, if that's the sideline, wherever your chest is, the ball just goes to the left. So if my chest is that way, it's going to go out on the full. So we've got to get our chests, even if you haven't got much space, get yourself into this position. So as to where, because that's the ball just goes on that trajectory along. If you're perfect here, you'll be able to hit the right spot all day. Now, 8 and 2, head down, kick through, and kick right through the ball. And we don't want quick revolutions on it because it means they'll kick the living daylights out of the ball. We want long hang time. Slower it goes up, faster, the slower it comes down. So that's essentially a box kick. There was one other thing I was going to say with that. Oh, and then obviously for the senior guys, the quicker you can get to that position, let's just do it this way. So, because there's a lot of traffic here for block them down, there's a couple of options. When I was playing over in England, they would just go like this, like that, and kick, and they'd be able to get away with it. These days it's a bit tougher around there. So you see Genny will come back, and Genny can't even box kick, so I don't say that that's against him, because he's such a fine player. But I don't want you to be watching him. He's not the person to watch when you're watching box kicks. Watch the European guys. And because the box kick was so, when I was teaching this last year during that spring tour in Australia, when I over when Checker was the coach for the first time, a lot of the Southern Hemisphere teams would kick the Israel Folau in the Super 12, and there's the Super 15, and Folau would have a 15-metre gap because they'll do these long linear box kicks and all these long type of kicks, and give Israel Folau 15 yards, and giving him 15 yards is like putting him in a candy store. So what they did in Europe, if you notice Folau was nullified a lot, is all the British box kickers, they're not going to give him a chance at all. They make him go up and contest it and get him, and they just hit him straight away. So the balls, so the long linear box kick goes from here, like at Sydney Harbour Bridge, whereas their box kicks go like that. And there's a huge difference. And so, I guess that, just lost my train of thought anyway, that's the kicking, 8 and 2, head down, kick through. Oh, sorry, I was there. And so some of the guys, this is the best way to do it for the guys, reach out, because it gets them back into this position like that, and they're away from traffic. So reach, if you're coaching guys probably 15 or over, that would be the way to do it, to actually, because they're holding at the back of the block like that, and it's just to reach like that and get yourself into position and ready, and then that's straight, boom, 8 and 2, head down, kick through. That's essentially all I've got for you guys tonight. If there's any questions, you can ask me. I know Peter's going eagerly over there. If there's any questions, also, if anybody wants to get in contact with me, I have some stuff over here. It's work-related stuff. It's got my mobile on it. If anybody wants to ask me questions about my work stuff, or even just about rugby, my mobile's on there. And feel free to ask. Any questions?
Just one thing, we're teaching him how far you want the box kick?
Well, again, with those ones, 20 to 25 yards is for that one, and again, he's got 40 to 50 yards. Probably, and that one would be, again, it's for the youngsters, it's hard. But where were we? We were there. So the box kick, if you're down, again, you're probably here, you want to get the 40 or 50 yards to there. But if you were just here, you want to get a 20 or 30 yard kick to landing there, and you want to pin them into that corner, and you've got to make sure it can't go on the sideline because they can just do that so easily. So you've got to get them to actually aiming inside, a bit further inside, and again, you've got to be mindful of the 22. If they're in 22, they're a bit closer. If they're not, obviously they can't. They're not?
Yeah.
Do you have a personal technique for long passes as far as hand position on the ball? Maybe you said.
Well, basically, it's just the same. I'll just tell you something. Me personally, I was never a long passer, but I was a quick, short. The guys used to give me a bit of rubbish about the top gun passer, but I actually think that the top gun passer is more, because I can get around the field quicker, the top gun passer today is everybody's going. But I would say, as a city ball, stick the ball in the cradle, and those fingers, it just rolls off those fingers like that. So the ball just sits in that cradle, and then it's that flick of the wrist, and then it's directed by the hip as well.
So you have to go high or halfway up the.
Well, wherever they're comfortable, but about, I would say a third to 40% up the ball. That's sort of slightly just before halfway. And that's the flick of that wrist.
That's what I'm trying to get your bottom hands on. They gives the direction.
Yes, yes.
Top hand. The throwing is a power throw.
Yep, and that leg gives a direction as well. That leg's like an aim, like a subliminal, what do I say? Like guide. Okay. Yep.
When you're doing your halfback drills, Brad,
Pardon?
when you're doing your halfback drills,
Yeah.
the person that's receiving the ball, are you having that person stay static, or you prefer that person to be running at a pace so that the halfback has...
Well, initially they're just static. Yeah, it's just static. It just depends. When I do the bottom guys at the moment, I don't want to stuff them up because it's pre-training. It's actually before they do the training. So I don't want them to lose any energy. It's not a fatigue meters in the legs thing. It's just immensely a thing just to keep on trying to perform a skill repetitively. So we just get them to stand still. With the youngsters, we can get them to run a lot.